Kearns of the Social Democrats.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both. And thanks especially for highlighting the kind of bigger picture there with regard to vested interests and I suppose the value of those exports comparatively to the value of the staff, how staff are valued in the sector. I think the pandemic highlighted many of the social injustices in our society and the erosion of the state's role in recent years, which leaves vulnerable groups exposed to increased risk. It's evident in nursing home direct provisions and two in this case. The scale of the outbreaks in meat processing plants illustrated the harrowing underlying issues in the sector. We're all aware of the unsustainable low prices that farmers have received from them. And now a clearer picture has been painted of the conditions that workers endure there too. We have to consider, like you said, if the large amount of migrants in this sector contributed to the conditions that facilitate the outbreaks. A few weeks ago, the then Minister for Business, Heather Humphreys, assured me that migrant workers in this area, and I quote, have the exact same rights as all Irish workers. Subsequently, after several questions to that department, I learned that since 2015, 622 migrant workers have been issued general employment permits, which fall into the Stamp 1 immigration category, meaning they have greatly reduced access to social welfare and other related supports. In addition, Ms McGinley's submission shows us that conditions attached to immigration status creates vulnerabilities and challenges for workers who are in effect tied to their employers. Your submission has a number of excellent recommendations that this committee and government should act on. Further to those, I wonder, could you suggest reforms to our immigration system that would help strengthen the rights and capacities of migrants and their families? This is the first question.
Thank you very much. In terms of workers being on work permits, I would disagree with the assertion in the Chamber around yes, everybody has the same rights, but everybody doesn't have the same ability to claim their rights. There's certain sets of circumstances that impact on a person's ability to actually claim and enforce their rights, whether that might be access to information, it might be kind of fear in a sector, fear of loss of employment and fear of losing your immigration status. I cannot overstate how much that fear impacts on people asserting and claiming their rights. In terms of reform of the immigration system, I did say sectoral permits. If you wanted to go for a gold standard, I would say they're called green cards. So where a person is, you have access to the labour market. It's very similar to nurses, for example. So for 2 years, you work in the sector where you are, but then after 2 years, you have full access to the labour market. You have a complete different set of rights. So I think that is then for those 2 years. It is specific to a sector, by the way, as well. So the gold standard is the green card, and that's what we would like to see. A subsector of that is the sectoral permits, and I'm very happy to supply other more detailed information on that to any deputy who'd like to see that, because I think there's a few things in that, and we'd be happy to write up something for you on that.
That'd be great, something maybe the committee could consider furthering. Thank you so much. The other thing I want to raise is the Black Lives Matter movement, and long overdue conversations about racism in Ireland have also gained prominence recently. Your report highlights issues around institutional racism and discrimination suffered by workers. Given that this House was mostly united in our desire for action on racism in Ireland and abroad, I'm wondering if there are key recommendations that you'd have for us. I know it's a long and complex issue and we are tight in time, but like the others, I'd really appreciate any documents or anything like that could be sent on. And just because the time is tight, I'll just put this in at the end. Your recommendation stresses the importance of inspections. I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on the necessity of properly unannounced labour and health and safety inspections by state authorities in meat plants. Thank you.
Unannounced inspections. I think on both levels for labour inspectors and for the HSA, I think I've made reference to it already. It can't be overestimated how important these are, because if you give people time to tidy up, hide, brush under the carpet, whatever it is that happens, you know, get workers out of the way who may be troublemakers, give them a day off. So that they won't say anything. This was part of the problem, I think, with inspections, is the lack of consultation and communication with workers. So we rely predominantly on a management or owner's compliance. In fairness, probably to the Labour Inspectorate, they can only inspect records. So really, you know, there is limitations. There's also a lot of limitations in terms of having adequate resources to do proper intelligence gathering and proper inspections and enforcement. But they need to happen. Workers need to be talked to. And that takes time. Building on what Brita said, if there's such a distrust of authorities and people have been failed over and over and over again, it's going to take time to actually talk to a worker, to build some trust, to generate the evidence that a state body needs in order to make proper recommendations. So it is something that needs time, and it does need investment in, and it probably needs a different approach.
Chair, can I just ask you, sorry, is there a role that this committee can make in ensuring that these proper kind of really necessary inspections are carried out in that way?
We can make recommendations. That's the extent. I mean, we can't obviously go and carry out, you know, inspections or anything, but we can certainly make recommendations to changes in legislation, and also recommendations, I presume, in changes to practices by state agencies.
It'd be great if we could do that then.
Well, you're welcome to
you.
join us when we're writing the report. Thanks very much, Deputy Cairns. Thank you. Deputy Murphy.